Morning, everybody. Thank you ever so much for joining us today. I just wanted to say thank you to you all for taking part and everything, and also a big thank you to Julian and Ben, who have kindly agreed to run this session for us today. They are our technical geniuses. There you go, boys. I'm bigging you up. And like I said, obviously we know that everybody has different social media skills, so it'd be really hard to cater for everybody in this session. So we'll put something together that'll hopefully, it's just sort of an overview and advice and that for you. At the end of the session, obviously, if you've got any questions, I'm sure the guys will be happy to answer them. If there's something that can't be answered in a quick question, the boys have also said that they're quite happy to do some follow-up sessions, you know, obviously their work schedule permitting, sort of thing. But if there are any questions that any of you guys think, oh, well, actually, I can answer that, I can help them out, please do shout out, because we had a great response recently when one of our charity partners needed some help with grants and applying, and Kate was one of them that come forward, and we had 5 groups come back that said, yeah, I can help you out, no problem. So it was great to have that, you know, groups helping groups sort of thing. So don't be shy and shout out if you think, yeah, actually, do you know what, I can answer that one because we've been doing that for ages, sort of thing. So with that said, I'm going to hand over to Julian and Ben, and thanks ever so much again.
Thank you very much, Karen. So what I'll do is I'll start presenting shortly, and Ben, if you keep an eye out while we're going, because you'll see the hands that pop up, but I might not see them because I don't think you'll necessarily see those on my screen. And just as Karen was saying, we're kind of going to flow through social media. This is something that you guys will think about as we go, and just kind of, I guess more than anything else, it's about bringing your personality out into what you do. So as we go through that, you'll kind of experience it. There'll be different questions for different people, obviously. As Karen says, we're happy to start following up and kind of evolve this. And if it turns into a community where, as an example, 20 different activities are going on through various different charities, and you find some that are working really well, if we can share that between this community, then it allows it to grow, and essentially you can get the most out of the experience. So what I'm going to do, without further ado, is I'm going to share my screen, and I just need you to let me know when you can see the presentation.
Yeah.
Can you see my screen, guys? Yeah?
Yes.
Okie dokie. Right, like I say, Ben, if you just want to keep an eye on the hands up, and we'll just kind of flow through. And between me and Ben, we'll just cover off each element. If you feel your hand's been up for a little while and nobody said anything, then feel free to interject, and we'll try and kind of roll through as we go. So just to get an idea of how you might want to consider introducing your social media activity or improving on the social media activity that you're going to undertake, then it's probably worth beginning with the end in mind. And so if you look at an example here of our key consumer trends advice that we've been given into the business for the next 5 years, we're starting to think about how people are actually feeling, what's important to them. And from that, you start to understand the kind of messages that you might want to be reaching out for that are going to engage. And so ultimately, if we look at some of the stuff on here, then in this current time, and, you know, coming out of a pandemic, if you look at the seeking safety and well-being, people's health is becoming something that's more and more important. And then moving on to eco-conscience, then really much the same. People want to think that the people that they're buying from, the people that they're working with, etc., are actually caring about the planet. So that's a key contributing factor, and people feeling better, certainly coming out of this difficult time. You want to be able to understand, for instance, what you're buying, so discerning consumption. The Co-op Mid-Counties does a lot of work in understanding the journey, for instance, when somebody goes from farm to fork. So what it would look like with it's a farm that is eco-friendly, for example, or looks after their animals correctly, and the whole journey, so that somebody, when they're buying something, understands exactly what's happened and whether it's fair trade, etc. So that's another component. Then we look at things like equal rights and opportunities. Again, something that's very, very important within our business. Belonging and being part of a community, not working independently, but how can we help each other? So the experience and what it feels like, for instance, to shop with us, and how we can make it clear to people what we're about. The way people's attitudes are changing, so the understanding what people are thinking now, what they might be thinking in months to come and years to come, and then historically you can think about how they felt in the past as well. So all of that coming into the new way, in the way that people actually live their lives now. And frictionless living, as an example, would be as thinking about how we can just use our phone or our watch when we want to pay for stuff. So all these things come into becoming important to a person. And so now we're starting to think about, okay, what can we start to say to people that fits around the things that they're actually interested in, where they are now, or how things might progress in the future. So some of the stuff that we're going to talk about today, so we're going to be covering, just first of all, what social media might be for your charity, looking at things like scheduling and automation, stuff like that, Facebook fundraising, Facebook pixel, retargeting, how to create posts, when to post, common goals, and then kind of like the takeaways that we can kind of evolve. So we've put an agenda together, myself and Ben, and essentially we'll cover all the things that are listed here. And then we'll be able to share this with you afterwards, like we said, from a recording perspective. So I shall get into it. And first of all, we have listed the various different social media platforms. These are the top 10 that have got the most activity. Essentially, we're going from Discord, which has 100 million active users every month, and then right up to Facebook, on the bottom right hand side there, which has got 2.7 billion people on the platform who regularly interact with it every month. And so I just thought now, Ben, be a good chance for you just to maybe just highlight some of the social media stuff that's on the list there, give some insight.
Yeah, sure. So, in terms of what Julian's mentioned there, Discord is more of a platform, kind of similar to WhatsApp, where you can download this app and you can kind of communicate in groups. It's more community focused, so you get a lot of gamers or kind of niche kind of conversations on there. Twitter, as I'm guessing a lot of you are aware of already, is kind of the one of the big three platforms where you can constantly get news updates. It's more kind of for here and now. So if you want to see what's going on in real time in the UK, you can see what the top trending topics are. You can jump on those topics. You can kind of engage with. Snapchat, I like to see this as a kind of, it's a demographic similar to TikTok. I'll join these together. They're kind of a demographic where it's more geared towards, I'd say, the 13 to 24-year-old market, where I'm guessing if you've got kids, you know a lot about TikTok. There's loads of TikTok challenges going around. It's all geared towards that kind of market. Reddit, I like to see Reddit as it's a platform quite similar to Facebook. I don't know if anyone's used it at all, but there's a lot of conversations on Reddit that are kind of, again, more niche, like Discord, and within Reddit, you'll tend to get conversations that are kind of politically incorrect, but also kind of there's no kind of censorship on conversations, so you can look at conversations and be quite raw, quite honest, and actually get kind of information that can be filtered on Facebook or Instagram. Pinterest is a social image sharing website similar to Instagram. It's kind of a similar niche there. I like to use Pinterest for infographics. So, for instance, if you wanted to do an infographic on how much money your charity's taken in for the year and where this has been distributed, I like to see Pinterest as a platform where you can kind of display images, but not in the conventional way. LinkedIn, which I'm guessing everyone here is aware of, so I won't mention that in too much detail, but it's kind of a platform where you can connect with other businesses, like-minded people. And I've mentioned TikTok there. Instagram, which I'm guessing everyone's aware of as well, similar to Facebook, but kind of a more focus on imagery. I like to use Instagram, and it's my favorite platform to use because for me it's a hybrid between Facebook and Twitter. So it allows you to post kind of images, whether or not you want to post images of yourself or what you're interested in. You can also follow like-minded topics like Twitter, but you're also getting that real-time imagery and video to support what people are talking about on Twitter. YouTube, probably my second favorite there, which is obviously the demand for kind of terrestrial TV day to day is a lot less, so people can watch YouTube whenever they want. There's videos for days on whatever your interests are. And Facebook, which is the biggest platform of all, it's kind of generally used to connect with friends and family, and I'm guessing a lot of your activity will be in Facebook, because as Julia mentioned, it is the highest performing platform.
Lovely, thank you, Ben. And so just a couple of things that I'd add. If you consider YouTube as a search engine, Google being the most popular search engine in the world, YouTube's the second most popular search engine in the world. So the amount of people that are typing in how to, as an example. So if you're starting to think, okay, which one of these platforms is right for us? Well, maybe you'll be putting a video together which is talking about how you can donate or contribute, etc. So that might be an option. And then just on Facebook, you'll be aware, obviously, that the way Facebook has integrated Facebook Messenger and also WhatsApp as well. So if you're thinking about those two things or why they're not in there, that's because they are involved within Facebook, or part of Facebook. Okay, so if we move on to thinking about the account setup, then it's really understanding who has got control. I mean, this is pretty top level and easy to understand ultimately, but when you start making your social media accounts, you have to think of the business, society or charity as a whole, and ensure that whoever has that fundamental control will always have it. So within the business. So as an example, I've previously experienced people who've exited a business and the business has lost control of their actual accounts. So I think that if you haven't done an audit and you don't know who currently has control over stuff, I think it's worth looking at. If you're setting it up now, you want to be using something that's, for instance, a email address that is available to certain people as an admin, but it isn't an actual personal thing. So control is the first element, and then obviously thinking about who's going to be doing the posting, who's going to be agreeing the marketing activity, and then also who's going to be responsible for correspondence, and that might be feeding back if people have something that they want to say, or even if you're dealing with some sort of negativity, or just I guess dealing with people's questions, etc. Ben, do you have anything to add to that before I move on to the next one?
No, nothing to add on this one, actually. You've covered that.
Okay, super. So if we think about what we're going to be doing, then, as I said earlier, begin with the end in mind. So as an example, I mean, you're going to be using some sort of social media platforms to increase your awareness. Are you trying to grow a following that are interested in your charity activity? Are you going to be looking to increase engagements? You want people to start talking to you. So if you just think about those things as their own components, so increasing awareness, obviously getting your name out there, but then beyond that, how do we get people's engagement? Are we actually looking for people to just understand, for instance, where their money goes? So that might be their following area, where somebody may be giving you a regular payment, or they've paid you something, and actually it's an opportunity for you to say, this is the great work that we're doing. Maybe you could give this to other people, etc., so they can see what happens from the donations that you receive, or progressions that people have made, or ways forward, or even if someone is having a hard time, then maybe they can reach to us through this platform. So I know you guys will be thinking about how you reach out to people. And I guess it's taking that social media element and making it easy. So if we think about the next levels, it's like it's getting that message across, it's getting messages back, people interacting with you, getting comments on specific things that you're undertaking. And then you could also consider, are you going to use this as a fundraising exercise, as an example? So I've got on there says donate stickers on Instagram, but it may be that you're looking for volunteers, etc., or you're having an event and you need to find people who are going to get involved. So it's kind of really thinking about what you want to achieve from the activity that you're going to undertake, short term, long term, etc. Ben, happy for me to move on?
Yeah, the only thing I'd add to that is when I kind of look at this kind of personally and also for work, I kind of look at it with a long-term plan, a long-term goal achievement, and then when you identify what you're trying to achieve long-term, then we can kind of work on the short-term plan and how to get there. Because I've worked with people before, and you kind of think just posting once or a video that you think is amazing, sometimes it doesn't get the reaction that you want online, and then it's easy to give up. But if you kind of keep the long-term plan in mind and how to get there, it's a lot more fulfilling that way.
Yeah, you're dead right. Okay, so let's start thinking about what the audiences are. And essentially with social media, there's a really good opportunity to get into those demographics and kind of understand the personas that will engage with you better. Ben, do you want to cover this bit, please?
Yeah, sure. So I'm assuming that everyone here has already got their Facebook set up, and based off your friends or people who follow your page, you'll start to get Facebook. Or what Facebook will do is it will create a profile based on what your target demographic is, what gender it is. It will also break it down into whether they're single, married, if they have a higher education, if they've got children or not. It will also identify what pages your audience is most likely to follow based off a general consensus of all of your followers in the pot. An example for this would be within cooperative travel. A lot of our followers are aged between 25 to 45-year-old females, and because they obviously follow our page, they're most likely to engage with Jet2, Cadbury's chocolate, and even programs such as X Factor and Tracy Solomon. So what we can do based off of that information there, which it provides, we can then create a plan or a strategy to say that what do these other pages that my followers like, what do they do on their social media? How can we align similar to what they're doing, and kind of find a niche there where we can kind of do a hybrid of what other pages are doing to kind of entice followers to engage with our activity more.
Lovely, thank you, Ben. And you're dead right. And so the bottom line there is key to this. So it's drafting content and creating posts for target markets. Essentially when you're creating stuff, if you think about who you're talking to, it makes it a lot easier to create what you want to create. Okay, so tools that support your goals. If Ben, if you don't mind just covering off Hootsuite and Facebook Pixel, please.
Yep, sure. Should I do that now?
Yes, please.
Yep, sure. So within Hootsuite, it's a social listening and also a planning tool. So I think the membership or the sign up fee for this starts at something around £6 a month. And what you could do here is you can connect all of your accounts, whether that be Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And what you can do here is you can pre-schedule your posts. I know you can do this on Facebook already using the Creator Studio, but it doesn't allow you to do Twitter as well. And also listen to feedback from keywords. So for instance, if you put your charity as a keyword within Hootsuite, it will then pick out anytime somebody mentions this on Twitter. And you can also obviously schedule your post, whether I could sit here on a Friday morning and schedule it for the whole weekend or for the following week or even the following month if you've got a plan already in line. Facebook Pixel is probably one of the best tools I've ever come across, and it really does change the game in terms of understanding your audience. So what Facebook Pixel is It's a code that you can directly put onto your website, and it tracks your users from Facebook onto your website. So for instance, if you create a post and then somebody clicks on your post and goes to your website, it will then track it within the Facebook Business Manager, and it will say this post had 50 clicks, and then it will break it down into say that the clicks came from this area, or this is the kind of people who are interested in terms of age and gender. What it can also do then is if you are interested in paid advertising at all, you can then market towards people who are most likely interested to engage from predetermined actions, whether it'll be whether you want to target to people who are most likely to read the content you're posting, most likely to give donations, and loads of different predetermined actions that you can set up there. So if you haven't got Facebook Pixel set up already, I would 100% advise you to do so.
Lovely, thank you, Ben. So if we think about what Ben's talked about there and the reality of understanding that person better, and things like Hootsuite and Facebook Pixel will track people and also allow you to manage your posts and when you want to display what you want to display, and also what people are talking about. So some of that to some of you may sound complicated, it may not. But if we think about the measurement tools that you need to use to understand that, again, we get into an area that may sound confusing or it may not. But if we know that we have a website, first of all, we know we've got a presence and we know that people will be visiting that website. If we put Google Tag Manager on the website, as an example, you can see that as like a little bucket that sits on your site that allows you to plug other things into it. And so with a bit of code on Google Tag Manager, that would allow you to put in Google Analytics. Now, apologies to anybody who's already got this, but if you've got Google Analytics on your website, that means that you start to see the information of the interaction of your website. So it's a free tool. Both of them are free, Google Tag Manager and Google Analytics, and that allows you to think, well, okay, so if I send out an email or I might do a Facebook post, if I go into Google Analytics, I can then see how many people saw my post on my social media platform and then actually went onto my website. And so when you start using Google Analytics correctly, you start to put measurement goals in place. So you can say, well, I put this post on last week and I did this post 2 weeks ago. And actually, I can see that X number of visitors made their way to my website. Y number of visitors landed on our information page, and some of them might have left straight away, which would be a bounce. Some of them interacted with the website and moved through. And actually, I can see Z is the amount of people that have signed up. So then I can start to see from the activity that I undertake which things are working and which things aren't. And that gives you that information so that you can grow your activity in the areas that are going to be most beneficial for what you're trying to achieve. So more than anything else, you start with the end in mind. You have to measure this activity to truly understand what's happening. Now, I've worked with Lloyd's Pharmacy previously, and they've done activity where they've got social media visitors coming through the site, and they've done activity where they're trying to get sales through paid activity. And sometimes the social media activities produce no revenue stream whatsoever. And that allows them to define what to do next and how to change that. Whereas if you've got a different activity and you've defined what's working, that's the bit that you start to promote and educate more and just evolve. So we'll move on now to what's right to post for you. Ben, you happy to go through this, or would you like me to do it? I don't mind either way.
Yeah, I don't mind. I can go through this. So yeah, it's all about what post is right for you. So I like to look at social as adding value before receiving value. So basically what that means is a lot of companies kind of use social and say, okay, we should be getting sales from social, we should be getting donations in this case from social, and it's all geared around receiving that action. But the way that social works, not only the way that Facebook let's use Facebook example, the way that Facebook wants social to work is that they want to promote conversations first. So what they'll do is with their algorithm, their kind of computer system, is what they'll do is they'll look at posts that are receiving engagement, whether that be likes and then comments as a secondary. So the more comments, the more they'll share that within the followers. So when you, for instance, when you post, it doesn't go to all of your followers straight away. They'll give it to 10 or 15% of your following, and then based off of that, they'll then distribute it to more. So around what you're posting is key and vital. So I like to definitely have a steer on informing your audience, educating them. Also, there's a testimonials there as well, and kind of those three, particularly for me. I like to use those because you're adding value to the customer. So the customer's not just doing an action and then leaving; they're engaging as well as potentially adding value to your company as well.
Thank you, Ben. So you'll hear things like Facebook stories, and I think that you consider a story or even a journey as a social media entity within itself. And if you can get people started on a journey with you, then as Ben's talking about, where you're supplying supportive information or inspiring people, testimonials or things that happen, and we'll come to this a little bit later, but there's good information out there about the approach that's called jab, 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 right hook. And essentially, as Ben was talking about before, if you're constantly providing useful, meaningful, helpful information, and then you ask someone for something, then they feel like they're getting something before you ask them for something. And I think that everybody as a charity will understand that approach. Right. So that moves us on to branding. And then I think that if you're creating your content framework of what you actually want to post and when you want to post it, and obviously fitting with inside your styling guides, templates, etc., assets you're using for testimonials, start to get that consistent way that you post or put your information together and share it out. So you think about a social media journey that might have 2 or 3 different touch points for the person that is seeing and engaging with your branding, and then they'll start to arrive at pages that fit that structure. I think that's a real positive feel where they're connecting, and the way that things don't keep changing allows that level of consistency. It makes people feel more comfortable when they travel from one location to another, and everything still feels the same. And so when it comes to branding and designs, videos, photos, etc., I've got a couple of examples here that are one's free, one is very cheap considering what you would want to use it for. So Canva is an alternative to Photoshop, which is free to use, which allows you to do allows you to do photo editing, etc. That will give your branding a personal feel. You can take your images and crop them, get everything to the right kind of sizes that you want to use for your social media platform, depending on which one it is. And then also in video is a really nice example of something that's very cheap. It's probably around $10 a month, I think, at the moment. And it's actually very easy to create a video and use free open source video information and images, etc., through that platform. It's not dissimilar to working on PowerPoint. So once you've got used to it, you'll be able to create some really slick looking videos for very little cost that actually will engage with viewers. If you consider what you would engage with and what message you want to get across, and you may have a load of videos that you want to use, you may be using them already, but if you can turn them into snippets of information that will get people's attention, I'd say on this one that a picture paints 1,000 words is an accurate statement of really conveying what's happening and getting your message across quickly. So on a posting time side of stuff, Ben, are you happy to cover this bit as well, please?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, is that okay? Thanks.
Yep. So posting time, I would say there's no right or wrong answer for this. Again, with kind of social as a whole, it's all determined based off of how your audience is engaging with your content at the moment. So I would say, as kind of we've got here put down, is that posting a minimum of 1 time a week. That should be the minimum. You might want to post up to 2 or 3 times a day, depending on how engaged your audience is. And what I would say is that kind of with the kind of posting and branding, I would say the best thing to do is keep it to the same times. Once you've kind of once you understand where you're getting the most engagement, because humans are kind of a creature of habit. So just posting at the same time, using the same colours, or if you're talking about different subjects, use different pictures which people can then associate back. So for instance, if you've got a follower that looks at a post on a Wednesday and then looks at it the following Wednesday, if you keep posting on the Wednesday the same day, people will start to expect it from you. So that's another way to keep people engaged.
Lovely, thank you, Ben. And that's it. It's just thinking about how you're going to post, what you're going to post, and when you do it. As Ben says, if you're doing it at a regular time, then actually the social media platforms, they have algorithms that will measure that interaction, and if you can keep that consistent, you're going to get your information posted more regularly because they can see it as a consistent reach out. Okay, so integrating posts into the message on your website, talked about that briefly earlier. So it's also understanding the traffic that's out there and how to direct it. So as I said before, begin with the end in mind. You know, what's the best location on the website to take the traffic, to gain the interest. We talked a little while ago about analytics and understanding the traffic that you get through to the site. If you think about looking on something like Google Analytics and looking at your landing pages, you might find that one of your pages where people have landed on your site has a lot more interaction than another page. Well, now you're already starting to get somewhere because you can start to evolve another page based around one that's performing and relegate one that isn't performing. So again, it comes back to content being key and gaining people's interest and then evolving what you're trying to do. So you have to understand where the volume is, what people are looking at, what's the kind of customer that's right for you. And then if you think about what you're posting, then it's important to be natural, to act natural, so to be yourself. So you can study the culture, you can understand the kind of traffic that might be out there, you can understand what people are talking about from examples Ben's talked about from Hootsuite, etc. But then you need to bring your personal feeling of what you're saying out into the social media arena, because that's what's going to connect with people. It'll create a lot of value. And then again, as we spoke before about jab, 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 right hook, it's providing that value and that things that people want to know about and then asking them for something. So a couple of examples I've got in are Google Trends and Uber Suggest. And if you think about Google Trends, a free tool, that what you would do is you literally just type in Google Trends into Google and it will open up an area where you could type in, as an example, golf. And if you typed in golf, what you would see is the trend over the course of a year of when more people are interested in golf and when less people are interested in golf. Now, that word golf is something that can be golf clubs, it could be golf courses, it could be a golf car. So then you start going a little bit deeper. You use another search, you might type in golf courses, and then as you would imagine, you'd start to see more people are interested in golf courses as it comes into the summer. So you can use Google Trends to understand people's general interest. So we can see with that search, for instance, we might put it over the course of a year, or we might put it over the course of 5 years. You might start to look at something and say, actually, there's a growing market there. So that gives you an idea of the times of the year that you might want to be doing specific posts or creating certain levels of interest. You would think of it as, say, somebody who's thinking about dieting, you would know that a lot of people are going to be reaching out in January just after New Year, because that's when people might potentially want to make a change. If you go onto Google Trends and typed in dieting, you then start to see actually more people are interested in search terms related to that in January. Well, just add something like Uber Suggest as a tool that you would type in specific words that you think people would use in Google. And so, for instance, you might type in diet plan. And what that will do when you type it into Google Suggest is it will tell you how much traffic is searching on the internet for that search term. So you might look at it and say, I've typed in diet plan, I've run that through Google Suggest, another free tool, and it says 40,000 people type on that search term in Google over the course of a month. So you can then start to understand the traffic that's out there. Uber Suggest gets deeper into driving paid traffic, etc. But just as a top level, understanding what people have an interest in when they're online will really help you when you're thinking about what a strategy might be. And that allows you to identify how you're going to stand out. So that's it on that slide. We should move on to the next one. So talking about negative messages, Ben, you or me, I don't mind.
Yeah, sure. So there's two keys to dealing with negative messages online. The first one would be to not take it personally. Just like emails or texts on social, sometimes the way that somebody types something can be misinterpreted. So what might you perceive as like an attack on your brand might actually just be a passing comment somebody's making. So it's just use it as an opportunity, as any opportunity, to kind of take the conversation from online to offline. So whether it just be a sorry to hear that, or just start the conversation as nice as possible, give the key information of where somebody can contact you offline. So you're doing this for two reasons. Firstly, to kind of limit the kind of pushback into kind of further comments with more negativity, but then also you're showing anybody who may come across this post that it's a professional company, that what somebody might perceive as negative might be a misunderstanding, and then obviously you're moving this conversation offline to deal with it personally.
Yeah, dead right. And we would obviously think of it from a sales perspective for us. We wouldn't want to be posting something like, oh, we're sorry that you had a bad experience, here's a £5 gift voucher or something like that, because you know ultimately that's going to encourage other people to try and take that route. Whereas just as Ben said, if somebody has some objections and you can take that to a very personal level and help and support them, then there's a good possibility that negativity would turn into a positivity, and then they can actually be an advocate for what you're trying to do, or even give you really good feedback on elements that people might need to see or want to see, and then ultimately you can bring that into your proposition. So we talked about measuring engagement before. Probably don't need to go into that in too much detail there from my perspective, but Ben, if you just cover off these elements, please.
Yeah, sure. So on the right hand side, I don't know how many of you are aware of the Insights tab within your Facebook, but it's just a snapshot of what it looks like. So for instance, that's a 7-day view from Sunday through to Saturday, and it displays when your audience is online, and then also below it says time. So as you can see from here, the peak of when our audience is online is between 9 and 12. So looking at that data there, I would then kind of gear my most important posts to that time. I would use this as a kind of first point of call to understanding when to post online, but fail safe, if you haven't got the full data available within the Insights tab, it would literally be to try also post at 9 o'clock in the morning, post at 9 o'clock in the evening, post a few times in between then, and see when you're getting the most engagement, and then go on from there.
Lovely, thank you, Ben.
Sure, and yeah, social algorithm. So I kind of covered this earlier on. Facebook changed their algorithm at least once a year. It's usually around September, October times. But this is the latest update, which I covered off earlier, for 2020, and it's highlighting real conversations. So as I've put here, now's the best time to create engaging in conversational content than ever. There's no right or wrong with content. It's only, I kind of look at it as it's okay to be outside of the box as long as you believe in what you're posting and it aligns with the brand. I would push yourself to the limits, especially in travel at the moment. We're trying to kind of beat the algorithm by creating more live sessions, whether that be with travel agents or some of our suppliers, that we can kind of have real conversations that people can see that it's live, because they'll get a notification, they'll join that live session, and then they'll naturally start to post comments, which we can answer in real time, which will then help us grow as a brand, but also push us not only to our audience more, but to people who are friends of the friends who follow our page. So that's an organic way to push us out there.
Lovely, thank you, Ben. So understanding the next steps, I mean, it's very simple. I've just put a few words on here. So wash, rinse, repeat. Ultimately, it's understanding what's working and then just keep going again and again. So it allows you to amplify your message in that way. On the right hand side, thinking about how we reach out to people. There's other alternatives, you know, as Ben said, once you start getting some traction, you might want to put some paid activity into an area that's beneficial. Doing that when you're measuring and you can see that goals are being achieved is the best way to spend any money. So you understand what the return is and what the growth is like. If you think about remarketing and retargeting, quite a lot of the time we may visit a website, or indeed we'll talk about something and it almost feels like Alexa is listening to us, because then all of a sudden these things, they appear as we're making our journey through our online activity. I think once we agree to cookies on websites, they do track our interests, and then things like Facebook Pixel will identify there's a certain area that people are interested in. I went to see Google a couple of years ago now in London, and they were talking about the age of assistance being really important. And so what they want to do, and what all these platforms are looking to do now, is put information in front of people that they want to see. And then it's an engaging experience. So part of me always thinks, well, I don't like the fact that I feel like I'm almost being spied on. But in reality, if somebody's offering me something I'm interested in, then I actually don't mind. So that's the bit when I don't actually think about it, and I'm quite happy with it. It's all based around the analytical information that is collected from us when we shop online or we travel online through different websites. There's a massive data out there now that should make it easier for you guys to reach out to the people who care about what you're trying to achieve. So just bear in mind that data is key. And that's it. That covers pretty much everything. So I'm going to switch off the screen share now and hand back to Karen. Oh, we've got somebody attended now. We'll let them in. They've missed the best bit, I think. Karen, do you want to take over and deal with any questions, etc.? I didn't see any hands go up. Did you, Ben?
No.
Yeah. Has anybody got any questions they'd like to ask the guys while we've still got them online? See no hands coming up. How did you find the session? Was it informative? Did it give you some ideas?
Very good, thank you. Can I just ask, what do you guys think is the best platform to use I know that everyone's got their own opinions. I mean, I tend to use Twitter for partnerships, collaboration and projects, and Facebook for individuals and communities and people. What do you guys, what's your advice really?
Yeah, I would say you doing that. That's how I would use it for, exactly like that. So I would use Facebook. I think one thing we didn't mention in the presentation is the utilization of Facebook groups. So not only using your Facebook page, but I don't know if you've got any closed groups, but also closed groups within the community that you operate in. I find that's the best way to engage and build an audience on Facebook. And then also for partnerships, Twitter, possibly LinkedIn as well, is probably the best route to go for partnerships.
Brilliant, thank you. Yes, Stacey, I know you've started a LinkedIn recently for the organisation. We're new to that one, but we've tended to really focus on Facebook. But some people have said, oh, we've noticed you're not on this or you're not on that. And I'm thinking, I can't have any more username and passwords.
That's exactly it. So I mean, essentially, like there's Instagram, there's obviously, you name it, there's Snapchat, but then if it doesn't suit your brand or your following or your audience isn't on there, then there's no point, because all that will happen is you'll create a page, but then it won't have the same content as your other pages that are performing as well, and it will kind of get left behind.
Yeah, it's interesting that you can merge them all together. So I've been able to learn quite a few things from this morning. So thank you so much. Cheers.
No problem.
That's good to hear.
Can the slides be shared with us, please?
Yeah, I don't see why not.
Yeah, that's not a problem. I can send them out to you afterwards. That's not a problem.
Appreciate
it.
Yeah, and so I think that you were talking about which platform is right for you, and I think if you've got measurements in place, and you have the capacity to try each one, then you have to think about which members of your team might engage with a specific platform. So you might think, well, actually, so-and-so might like using that. So we're going to start thinking about if everybody may be trying and having their own bit that they could work on. So, you know, it may be within your charity, there is, say, spare time in the evening as an example, when there's not so much demand, where you might be able to try something. And obviously this is just me giving an example of what it might look like. But then there's different volumes, and you'd easily be attracted to Facebook because it's got 2.7 billion people interacting. But actually, if you found something that worked on Discord, for example, or Snapchat, and you were measuring it effectively, you might find an area that nobody's touched on before. So I think that Ben's right in that there's key areas you know where the traffic's going to be. We've given you a list of the top 10. If you're measuring it and you find something that works for you, then that could be any one of those platforms.
Yeah, like we've got a few closed groups that work well. We have got someone that uses a service, a young person that only wants to be contacted on Discord. So yeah, it's very specific to individuals as well, isn't it? But from a marketing and promotion point of view, I think that they seem to be the main two out there. So I think LinkedIn very good for jobs and posting and more professional and asking, you know, that corporate social responsibility favors. That's very good for that niche, isn't it?
Yeah, dead right. You start to understand who might be thinking, well, actually, as part of what I've got on my LinkedIn, maybe I want to be involved in some sort of charity activity. If you turn it around a slightly different way and think about what could you put into LinkedIn that will appeal to somebody who wants to grow their own personal growth or profile. You know, there's a lot of stuff on LinkedIn to help people evolve. There's a lot of learning areas. Well, maybe you can bring something in that is in a learning area that might not have been conceived in LinkedIn before, which is about how you could support a local charity as part of what your business might do, etc. So it's about thinking about each one of those platforms, what someone's trying to get out of them, as well as what you can post into them, and maybe thinking of just a different way that somebody else may not have thought of before.
Thank you.
Okay.
Anything else for anybody else? No? Well, what we'll do is we'll get this, I'll get the slides sent out to you guys, and obviously I'll also send you an email once the video is ready to be uploaded, and let you know when it's on there. But yeah, I'll get the slides out later today for you, so you've got them. And if there's no more questions, all left to do is to thank the guys. Thanks, Ben. Thanks, Julian, for taking the time out. It's been brilliant. It was, I thought it was a really good session, so I'm sure everybody would agree. So thank you so much for your time today. And that's it.
Thanks,
Yeah, no worries.
Thanks, guys.
You're very welcome.
Very much.
Should I just add that I think that going forward, if we start to build some level of community, I think that would be a positive. I'm quite happy to be supportive of that.
Yeah, brilliant.
Yeah.
Okay.
And 100%, if you've got any questions that, like, you might think of later on or within the week, feel free to ping them across and we'll answer them.
Yeah, just send them through to me and I can pass them on to the guys. So yeah, no problem at all.
Lovely. Okay, thanks very much, guys.
Guys, take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.